Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AVAM's Logan Visionary Conference. Bigger Love, graciously sponsored by the Revada Foundation. Please welcome to our conference, our founder and director, Rebecca Hoffberger.
Thank you so much, Gage. I just really wanted to thank you for all your logistics and graphics, etc. And to Valerie, who will be answering or monitoring the chat today and the Q&A for any questions to our speakers. So I wanted to go forward to see the image from Raphael Matthias of his beautiful beaded work. He passed away just a few months ago, and so in tribute, we were so thankful to have his original 6-foot work of all this beaded wonderful work that he showed with us during our exhibition on love. So welcome everybody who has come today. Here's the format, here's the deal. We are so lucky that we have had for the past few years, we've had two people, Dan and Gloria Logan, who have the Revada Foundation, inspired by the same generosity and vision that Dan's parents, Reva and David Logan, have had, and compassion for people. And this permits us to actually deepen the learning of our thematic exhibitions. You know, we've never been a national museum just about hip, cool art or anything like that. Every year we explore those major themes in life that impact us as human beings and control the trajectory of human life. So let's get started today with one thank you to Dan and to Gloria for their faithful support. And we hope we can get back to live sharing together at a live visionary conference. But today we have one virtual pre-recorded opening from one of our biggest fans, Stavros Lambrinidis, the European Union ambassador to the United States, who brought all 27 EU ambassadors to tour our museum and the state of Maryland. Let me tell you a little bit about Stavros. He's Greek, but he graduated from Yale University, and he is a lawyer on both sides of the Atlantic. Before he was twice elected to the EU Parliament and once elected vice president of that, he was always involved with people and well-being. He is not some bureaucratic fonctionnaire kind of ambassador. Stavros Lambrinidis is a huge caring force. He worked for a long time to try to stop human trafficking in Europe. And I can't think of a more love-filled human being to be the EU ambassador. Now listen carefully to what he's going to say, not all the nice stuff in the beginning, but he will lay out the role that a bigger love played in the creation of the EU, as well as the love of the earth that we share. So here we go.
Greetings, everyone. I am Stavros Lambrinidis, and I am the EU Ambassador to the United States, and I'm speaking to you from the EU residence in Washington, D.C. I've been told to say thank you, Rebecca, for those kind words of introduction, so I hope you introduced me, and I hope that your words were kind. And certainly thank you for inviting me to speak at your annual conference this year on the theme of a bigger love. I'm not sure how, as a diplomat, I am best qualified to speak on this topic, I have to say, but Rebecca thinks that I am, so how could I refuse? My connection with Rebecca and AVAM goes back to December 2019, when I led 27 European ambassadors on a joint outreach to Maryland. Long story short, at the end of a very long day of meetings in Annapolis and in Baltimore, we made our way to the American Visionary Art Museum for a final engagement. At the entrance, Rebecca appeared like a radiant dea ex machina and led us on a tour of the Secret Life of Earth exhibit. Now, we were transfixed and we were transformed by what we saw. and we were utterly inspired by the warmth of Rebecca's welcome and her passion and compassion for making the world a better place. That meeting, just over a year ago, left a profound and lasting impression on me and my fellow ambassadors. Little did we imagine that just a few months later, we would find ourselves in the grip of a deadly global pandemic, which to date has taken over 2.5 million lives worldwide. In a matter of weeks, we went from being able to live, love, move, and mingle at will to complete lockdown, masks, and social distancing. In those early weeks of lockdown, it was difficult for me, both as a diplomat and as a social animal to boot, to adapt to working virtually from the large, empty dining room in my residence, from which I'm speaking to you now. With all the usual diplomatic activity no longer possible, I reached out to Rebecca. The amazing collection I had seen at AVAM of social and environmentally conscious art kept popping into my mind. Over a socially distant lunch at this room, we talked about how we might work together to remind people that we have the imagination, compassion, and innovation in us to find solutions to heal ourselves, the planet, and to be truly resilient. The upshot was our decision to install 28 pieces of unique art from the AVAM collection at my residence in time for AVAM's 25th anniversary last November. It was curated by Rebecca herself, and that was a special treat and a special honor for me. Today, my dining room is an outpost of AVAM and a place full of stories of human endurance, humor, and resilience. The effect of the pieces working together is hard to describe, honestly, but all I can say is that the dining room is now the heart and soul of the residence. When the pandemic is over, I certainly look forward to opening my residence back up to events and to sharing this extraordinary exhibition with others. What is Rebecca's secret? It is, quite simply, as far as I'm concerned, that she does everything with love. Massive amounts of love. You cannot resist her, and we thank her for it. So that is how I came to be your keynote speaker today. But now let me tell you why I am here. As a Greek, I could allude to the mythology and to the story of how Eros, the god of love, came after chaos when the earth was created. But as a Greek who is currently responsible for the European Union's relations with the United States, I have something more contemporary to share. First, not many people realize this, but the European Union itself is an example of what can be when you prioritize love and peace over hate and division. For centuries, European countries went to war with one another constantly, locked in a permanent struggle to dominate the other. After 2 world wars, we finally realized that hate only produces injury and loss. By reconciling and by working together, we could all survive together and build a future for our children. This model has given Europe the longest uninterrupted era of peace and prosperity since at least the Middle Ages. Now, the European Union has helped us to not regard each other as a threat, ended the artificial division of Europe into an ideological East and West, and created a place where Europeans are free to live, to work, and indeed to love in each other's countries without fear. Today, dear friends, the EU is working hard to help Europe recover from the pandemic. Everyone is, in the US as well. From the start, in Europe, we have made it clear that our approach would be one of solidarity, providing help where it is needed most, even if that is outside our borders. That is why we led the global effort to support the production of safe and effective treatments and vaccines, not just for ourselves, but for the whole world. I am proud to say that the EU, even while experiencing shortfalls in its own vaccine supply, has kept its word and supplied millions of vaccines to poorer countries in our neighborhood and to many others around the world, including the United States. This is not naivete. This is humanity in action. Dear friends, today, many scientists warn that if we do not address a climate crisis, the COVID pandemic may well be the first of many. The work of mitigating climate change is urgent. Inaction is not an option. U.S. climate envoy John Kerry recently estimated that we have a mere 10 years to turn the situation around. This is the make or break decade. We need all hands on deck. That is why we are so delighted that the United States has rejoined the Paris Treaty and has committed, like the European Union, to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. Personally, I hope that we will also work on a plastics treaty to remove dangerous plastics from the ocean where it wreaks havoc on marine life. It will take sustained leadership, effort, and commitment from all of us. But we have proved to ourselves during this pandemic that we can adapt, we can help others to adapt, we can ensure we leave this planet better than we found it. Dear friends, my message to you is simple. Love works. It has worked in all Europe, and it is at the heart of all we do to be a force for good in the world, whether it be through trade, aid, or development assistance. Respect for the environment, respect for human rights, respect for equality are prerequisites for being members or partners of the European Union. These are the cardinal values enshrined in all our legislation and international agreements. As Pablo Casal said, and his words are emblazoned on the wall of the AVAM Museum, love of one's own country is a splendid thing, but why should love stop at the border? I love that. I love that quote. Okay, so on that happy note, let me just say how hopeful I am that we're entering a period of great collaboration between Europe and the United States. Together, we're taking on those who seek to thrive on repression and conflict. Together, we can show that love, the theme of today, is not weakness, but the courage to do the right thing, to embrace the other, and to thrive as humans together. Thank you all for tuning in today. Thank you, Rebecca, and have a great conference.
So here we're giving credit to the artist that created the 28 pieces that will be for the next 2.5 years on view there at the EU ambassador's residence, just 2 doors down from the Obamas. And he's really looking forward to when we can do more receptions so more people can get to see it. And we thank very much the Maryland State Arts Council and our other sponsors that made it possible. Today is, I guess, a phenomenon that has been over 40 years in the making. I have been very blessed in my lifetime to meet some extraordinary human beings. But there was one I met, I guess 42 or 3 years ago, Hazel Henderson, who I could never forget. And if you are in any way awake into how money is used in your own life and in others and impacts and systems impact, you may know about socially responsible investing. And those were funds like the Calvert Fund that were first and pioneers in giving people who want to make sure that their IRA, their own, investment in the market went to companies that were ethically conscious themselves and not harmful to anyone or anything, etc. And that whole movement was really inspired by my beautiful friend, Hazel Henderson. This is an article from 1971 in the New York Times. Now, have you ever seen the New York Times give any other economist a full page? This was, the whole length of the New York Times page that day. But everything that Hazel has thought about in terms of how money works, and you're going to hear from her directly today on that, has been for the betterment of humanity. So Hazel, I have so much respect for you. And I know that now that you approach the 9th decade, certainly don't look it, what is amazing is that the Wall Street International Magazine has asked you to be a regular columnist, but you've written for Forbes, you've written for all the great thinking media for so long. And so I just thank you with my whole heart. The interesting thing for everybody out there to know is that our 3 live speakers today, and I hope you enjoyed as much as I always do, Ambassador Stavros Lambrinidis. He has such a beautiful heart and is doing such important work in this world. But these 3 speakers, Hazel, Daryl, and Dr. Wayne Jonas, are going to have a real voice because we think that creative acts of social justice has always constituted life's highest performance art. And these are 3 creative people about how to apply, be it to medicine, to healing in Dr. Jonas's case, or to Daryl into approaching people full of hate and full of anger and being able to be that alchemist of the human heart, or our Hazel. So Hazel, I can't wait to weave you into our upcoming fall exhibition entitled Healing and the Art of Compassion and the Lack thereof. We're going to focus on the antidotes to the lack of compassion. And you're surely primary in that, because I think greed fuels such a lack of compassion in our world. So everyone, I give you Hazel Henderson.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. This is such a joy, and what an honor to follow the European Union ambassador. And it just reminded me that the European Union back in 2007 invited me and a group of other kind of renegade economists to come together and put together a conference which we had at the European Parliament called Beyond GDP. And we brought all of these issues up, that the GDP glorified money. It's basically a cash flow indicator, and it just ignores all the other values that human beings have honored since time immemorial. The values of the golden rule and the values of loving families and communities, all that accounts for nothing in the GDP, and nor does the contribution of nature, completely ignored. So back then in 1971, I was one of the leaders of a group in New York City, one of an early environmental group. And that was how it came to be that I gave a speech back to the National Association of Business Economists, telling them, look, you have to expand this GDP model, and you have to value all the other things that we care about. And the European Union is still following that beyond GDP trajectory. And anyone who wants to follow can still go to www.beyond-gdp.eu and see how many of the EU member countries are moving away from the GDP toward these broader indicators of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, which were ratified by 193 nations now in the year 2015. So we're making huge progress. So I just want to dig in a little bit to what I call fixing the money meme, this glorification of money. And we have to remember that money is not wealth. It's simply a scoring and tracking system. And so anytime we worship money, we are missing the real resources and the real human talent that it represents. So the next one, please. So basically, I produced this cake diagram back in 1981. And basically, the economist always talked about the pie and dividing up the money slices. And I said, no, 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 it's actually much broader. Only the two top layers, the private sector and the public sector, they're the only sectors which are conducted in money. And they are smaller than the two lower sectors, which are completely missed. And the third sector down, of course, is this loving economy, the social, cooperative, mutual aid, the golden rule, which is in every religious tradition, every society all over the world. And we have always used money, whether it was shells in Polynesian countries or whether in Native American countries, nations, it was wampum. So we've always used money and markets, local village markets that I used to enjoy as a kid. So these were wonderful inventions, but they don't expand. They're based on face-to-face love and trust. And when you try to blow them up with all of these macro statistics to drive the kind of globalization based on money and GDP, you end up with what we have today. And that is revolts all over countries saying, look, I'm not in flyover country. I don't want to be overlooked. I'm not in a rust belt. And so that whole system based on money is like flying over a country at 60,000 feet, with losing all of the human detail and the love and caring, the raising of children, going to serve on the school board like my mother did, you know, serving on Meals on Wheels and her Well Baby Clinic and all of those things that make a community thrive. So that love economy is totally ignored in GDP because it's obviously not monetized. It's voluntary, it's free, it's loving. And of course, the whole thing rests on nature's productivity. And we miss that too. Only now, where we're breaking down nature to such a degree that we're causing climate catastrophes and pandemics and all of the rest of it, suddenly the economics profession is saying, oh my gosh, oh, I see, we do have to somehow bring nature's productivity into the mix, but it can never be based on money. So the two sectors, the money-based sector and the market-based sector, are quite often the best way to do things. And often, though, they're the worst way to do things. And that's where we have market failures, like we have in the climate system today, like we have in our healthcare system in the US today, like was demonstrated in Texas in February, where we suddenly realized that just trying to use money and markets and prices left Texans cold, and 200 of them died. The water supply gave out. So that's what happens where you have market failures. So all I'm trying to do is to clarify the two ways that humans have always transacted. Could I get the next one now, please? And we're all fairly familiar with this. There's the money-based way of transacting, perfectly useful in many ways, can bring about innovation sometimes more quickly. But then the other way is the love economy. And a lot of it is still prominent and prevalent in many of the countries in the Southern Hemisphere. And what we're realizing now is that we have to make sure that we're using money in markets only in those areas where they work, and otherwise going to pure information-based transactions, the way we have all of our lives, where we get together locally and make things happen in our community organizations and with barter and cooperation. And let's call it the love economy. The next one, please. And so this is just to help us remember the evolution of our human understanding of the role of money. And as you know, at the bottom there's the pre-industrial societies, and they used clay tablets and shells and cattle, metal tokens. And then the early industrial period where we used silver and gold, mostly nation state based. And then now we have gold. We had gold standard money for international transactions. That failed dramatically, of course, in the Great Depression, because there simply wasn't enough gold, And now we have the crisis of fossil fueled industrialism, which was based on oil. And we thought that oil was the most valuable transaction. Now we realize it's data is the new oil. And money systems get completely bypassed in today's information-based currencies and the trading systems of green information. And what we have been doing at my company, which is a not-for-profit, it's basically a benefit corporation. We take no advertising, and we research how people are moving closer and closer to this greener and information-rich economies of what I call the solar age. Can I get the next one now? And we're all beginning to see this. I called it back in 1995. I wrote a book called the Building a Win-Win World. And I talked about our information economies shifted to services, and time and attention became as valuable as money. And a lot of us have been finding that out with the pandemic. People seek new challenges and experiences. A lot of people opt for less income and urban stress and material goods, even cars. Millennials, they don't even want to buy a car, they'd rather do things online. And so services are now the predominant part of GDP of all mature industrial economies. And that's all, in the statistics. And the thing we have to remember is that an information-based society is an abundant society. If you give me information, I still have it, and you have it too. So there's abundance to be had by sharing information. And we see that, all of the young people who created the Creative Commons, of sharing of computer systems and all of that, we see that as a very common thing today. The next one, please. And so we know that the full repertoire of human behavior goes, yes, from conflict and competition, but all the way to cooperation and sharing. And all the other social sciences accept that, except market economics. And so I'm writing an article now, my next column for Wall Street International Magazine is called Time to Dethrone Economics. And what I mean by that is just to admit that it's a profession, can never be a science. And basically, it's like the law. And what economists do with their cost-benefit analysis and all of this is they try to present the best way they can, whatever their client wants to do, whether it's building a road or a hotel or whatever. And so now we've transcended that, and we've brought in all of these broader disciplines: game theory, psychology, sociology, anthropology, and the new decision theory and systems thinking. And that's what's incorporated really in the new Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. The next one, please. So this is just to remind us, not only is our information age based on abundance and love and caring for each other, as the ambassador said so beautifully, but it's also based on the fact that our planet exists based on the free daily photons from our mother star, the sun. And that big yellow box is the annual solar irradiation that comes free of charge to the Earth. And the tiny little orange box down here is the global annual energy consumption on this planet. So you can see that we are never going to run out of solar energy. And we've reached the point now where the tipping point has occurred. And now solar and wind energy, along with efficiency, are cheaper than building more coal plants, oil, electricity plants, or nuclear energy. They've priced themselves out of the market. So we are already moving now toward what I have always called the solar age. Do you want to bring up that next one, please? So I wrote this book, I can't believe it, in 1982. And it was published by Doubleday in New York. And it was reviewed as the top review in the New York Times Review. And it was lauded in scientific journals and around the world, but it was completely ignored. In fact, it got to be really funny because I was often in New York, and I'd find you couldn't even find this book in a Doubleday bookstore, even though they were the publisher. Because, you know, Ronald Reagan had come in and he'd taken the solar panels off the roof that Jimmy Carter put on the White House roof. And you can't quite see there, but the foreword was written by my physicist and longtime friend, Fritjof Capra, who wrote The Tao of Physics, and that I collaborated with him on a book that same year that my book came out, and his book was called The Turning Point. And so we totally agreed that the solar age was simply an evolution of human knowledge. And it was inevitable for all of those reasons. And that now seems to be what is actually happening. So the next one, please. And so I like designing the covers of my books, and the cover that they wanted for this book I wrote in 1991, which I call Paradigms in Progress, was just looking at all of the statistics being developed in the European Union and all over the world, in China, everywhere, about life beyond economics. All the social indicators of health, education, environment, poverty gaps, all the things that the economists missed by following the money. And so this was the image that occurred to me. And I had to prevail on the publisher for allowing me to design the cover. So I love the visual arts, and I think that's why I get along with Rebecca so well. The next one, please. And just to remind us all, what are these problems of the gross national product? Well, of course, here is all the froth on the top. These are the social and environmental costs that are now swamping the money. Here's the money part. And what we always said way back, we environmentalists, we were saying that why is it that we don't have a net GDP that separates all the bads, this stuff, the pollution and all of this, that subtracts that from the money-based GDP, as it was back then, and instead have a net so that we would see that not only, was it going up more slowly, but now we find it's going down. And it's creating more problems than the economists recognize. So basically, the last slide I want to just leave you with is this following one. Can you? And that is to remember that the expanded framework we're using now going forward in all of the progressive areas of both government and private sector policy is that ecology and living systems theory and all of this is really the framework that we have to use. It's a planetary framework. And then there's these kind of ways of looking at what we are doing. Better to use general systems theory and decision making. And only then can we look at economics and figure out what is appropriate to measure in money and what is not appropriate to measure in money. And so I'll stop right there. And anyone who wants to get any of our free information, it's all here, all downloadable from ethicalmarkets.com. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Hazel, so much. You always give so much food for thought, and there's so many, a whole new generation of young people who look to you for your wisdom. So thank you so much for this insight. I don't know if there is a question, but any other questions? I don't see where, Valerie, would you just speak if you see any question you'd like to express?
From Gail Viamonte, I'm intrigued by the lines of exploration and theory/application. It has always bothered me that the US looked to new housing starts as a major measure of growth and well-being, along with other consumer indices. Are there other alternative indices that can be neatly publicized so as to provide a public positive catchphrase?
Yes, we've been doing a series of webinars, which we're doing them with the Arizona State University, and we call them steering societies beyond GDP to the SDGs, and that is the new Sustainable Development Indicators of the UN. That now that they're ratified by 193 countries, what is happening is that they're boxing in the old economic model and all of those asset managers that are behind the curve who might still be managing your pension or your 401k. And basically, we're saying you're getting it from the left and the right. You're getting it from the students telling you to disinvest from your fossil fuel assets, and you've got it from the young people, from the Greta Thunbergs and then you've got it from all of us socially responsible ethical investing that we have cumulatively measured now this past year at 10.3 trillion. That's with a T, of private investors investing in solar, wind, energy efficiency, electric cars, all of this LED lighting. This is where all of the market opportunities are going. So basically, you'll find a lot of this on our website, and I hope you contact us because we love to hear from you. And also I saw from my friend Mark Weiss, who's down there in Porto Alegre in Brazil. Hi, Mark. Nice to know you're on there.
Oh, lovely. Well, thank you again so much, Hazel. And I'm so glad you'll be part of our Healing and the Art of Compassion exhibition that will open next fall. Okay, so we have had some extraordinary grand visionary honorees, recipients through 25 years, right? A quarter of a century. From Archbishop Desmond Tutu to Rosie O'Donnell to Patch Adams to comedian Louis Black. But there was one that has really stayed with everyone who was blessed to hear him. And that is, I'm glad he doesn't live that far away, probably the bravest man I have ever met in my life. I think a lot of us have the desire to be a force to transmute the most base instincts to when we see racially fueled hatred or religiously fueled hatred and division. It hurts our hearts, and we don't want to be part of a polarized discussion, but we want to be a force for more unity. But no one has done that more bravely and more efficiently. I call him an alchemist of the human heart. So Daryl Davis, there are movies made about you. The Accidental Courtesy movie was, one of the most replayed things on television across this country and beyond. But I want people to hear directly from you today. And I'm just so thankful that you are who you are. Daryl?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great. We're waiting for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
That's all right. I apologize to the audience. Go ahead.
Not a problem. I'm glad to be here, Rebecca, with you and all of these distinguished panelists and all the guests attending this AVAM conference here. My name is Daryl Davis. I'm originally from Chicago, and I've been in Montgomery County, Maryland for, oh my goodness, probably about 40 years. I grew up as a child of parents in the U.S. Foreign Service. And so I began traveling around the world at the age of 3 with my dad in his job with the USIS, part of the State Department. And then now I have a degree in music. I'm a performer, and I perform around the country and around the world. So when you combine my childhood travels with my adulthood travels, I have now been in a total of 57 countries on 6 continents. And I've been in I've been to 49 of our 50 states. And all this is to say that I've been exposed to a multitude of skin colors, ethnicities, religions, cultures, beliefs, persuasions, ideologies, and all of that have impacted me into becoming who I am today. And I can tell you one thing, that no matter how far I go from this country, our country, the US, whether it's right next door to Canada or to Mexico or halfway around the globe, no matter how different the people I may encounter may be from me, they don't look like me, perhaps don't speak the same language or worship as I do, or engage in the same culture I do. When I get back home here to the US, I always conclude one thing, and that is that we all are human beings. And as such, we all want the same basic 5 core values in our lives. We want to be loved. We want to be heard. We want to be respected. We want to be treated fairly. And we want the same thing for our families as anybody else would want for their families. And if we can remember to employ those core values in whatever culture or society we may find ourselves in with which we're unfamiliar, I will guarantee you that our navigation will be much more smooth and much more positive. And I have been engaging in societies of white supremacy for about 37 years now. And I guarantee, it is those principles that I have employed that have led to my success in doing that. Now, why white supremacy? Well, I first got into it, where I was thrown into it actually, at the age of 10. We had just returned home from an overseas assignment. Now, overseas in the 1960s was my first exposure to school. And my classrooms were filled with kids from all over the world. Anybody who had an embassy in these countries, all of their children went to the same school. So what we call multicultural today was my norm back then. And that multicultural environment in a classroom had yet to come to our country. Because every time I'd come home at the end of one of my father's 2-year assignments, I would either be in an all-Black school or a Black and white school, meaning the still segregated or the newly integrated. And one time I came home at the age of 10, fourth grade, 1968, and I was one of 2 Black children in the entire elementary school, myself in fourth grade and a little Black girl in second grade. So, I really didn't see her except for like lunchtime or recess. Consequently, all of my friends were white. And many of my male friends were members of the Cub Scouts. And they invited me to join, which I did. Had a great time. We took part in a parade in which I was the only Black participant. And the sidewalks were lined full of white people waving and cheering and smiling and having a good time until we reached a certain point in this parade route when suddenly I was getting hit with bottles and soda pop cans and small rocks and just general debris from the street by just a small group of spectators on the sidewalk off to my right. I remember there being perhaps a couple kids a year or 2 older than me and a couple of adults who were throwing things. I was completely baffled as to what I had done to cause these people to behave like this. And my den mother, my cub master, my troop leader, all came running and covered me with their bodies and escorted me out of the danger. I kept asking them, what did I do? I didn't say anything to them. What did I do? And they just kept shushing me and rushing me along without explaining. At the end of the day, when I got home after the parade, my mother and father, excuse me, who were not in attendance, were asking me, how did I fall down and get all scraped up as they're fixing me up with Band-Aids and mercurochrome. And I told them I didn't fall down. I told them exactly what had happened. And for the first time in my life, my mom and dad sat me down and explained to me what racism was. Believe it or not, at the age of 10, I had never heard the word racism. I had no idea what they were talking about. And I literally thought that my parents were lying to me when they explained this to me, because my 10-year-old brain could not process the idea that somebody who had never spoken to me, who had never even seen me, and who knew nothing about me would want to inflict pain upon me for no other reason than the color of my skin. This made no sense. And the people who were doing this did not look any different to me than my friends right here in the US, or my American friends from the embassy overseas, or my little French, German, Swedish, Australian friends from their embassies. So I did not believe my parents. A month and a half later, maybe 2 months later, Martin Luther King was assassinated that same year on April 4th, 1968. And I remember it vividly. Every major city in this country burned to the ground in the name of this new word I had learned called racism. So now I understood this phenomenon did exist, but I did not understand why. Why do people hate one another? And I formed a question in my mind at that age of 10, which was, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? And I've been looking for that answer now for 53 years since then. So who better to ask that question of than someone who would go so far as to join an organization with over 100-year history of practicing hating people who don't look like them, who don't believe as they believe. So I began seeking out members of the Ku Klux Klan. And I decided to interview them, go around the country, interview Grand Dragons, Imperial Wizards, and regular members, and write a book about it. So that's what I did. And I would employ those 5 core values. And what I want to do right now, I'm going to share my screen. I want to show you a little video clip of a Klan rally that I went to. And I want you to pay particular attention to what the Klan leader says. He says that even though he and I would do different things together, it did not change his views on the Klan, because his views on the Klan had been cemented in his mind for years. He goes on to say how he believes in separation of the races because he finds that to be in the best interest of all races. But listen to what he says towards the end about respect. And let me just share my screen here. Okay, so this is 28 years ago at a rally in Frederick, Maryland. Towards the end of the rally, you can see the cross is going out. And here is 5 years ago in Missouri, about 90 minutes outside of St. Louis. What do I do at these things? I engage in conversation. Can you all see that? Okay, I engage in conversation with these people. The man that you see in the white mask and the green cross on his mask threatened my life when I came on the rally ground. For the next 5 years, he's been sending me a Christmas present every year. And now he's out. The gentleman to the left that you see with the Confederate flag, he was the imperial wizard, which means national leader. Other one was a grand dragon, which means state leader. The imperial wizard and I were becoming friends. I now own his robe, and he was murdered 3 years ago. Here is a clip of the gentleman from Frederick, Maryland, who's one of the rallies I attended here.
This is CNN.
Welcome to this final hour of CNN Sunday Morning. I'm Bob Kane, and today for Miles O'Brien.
Good morning to you all. I'm Joey Chen.
Friendship can transcend all kinds of boundaries.
Just look at us. And two men in Washington area are showing that even an African-American man and a member of the Ku Klux Klan can find common ground. CNN's Carl Rochelle reports.
Daryl Davis plays a hot piano. It's part of the show, and it makes him stand out. He also stands out here. Davis is one of the few African Americans you will ever find attending a KKK rally. More than attending, he is welcome.
I got more respect for that black man than I do you white nigger.
It's been a tough day for the Klan. Their Maryland rally found many local residents rejecting the message of white separatism. After it's over, Daryl Davis hangs around backstage with his friend, Klan wizard Roger Kelly. It's not unusual for blacks and whites to be friends, but it is unusual to find a black man and a Klan leader chatting pleasantly over an orange. The relationship started over a book Davis was writing. His secretary set up an interview with Roger Kelly, but didn't tell him Davis was black. They talked and talked some more. Davis learning about the Klan, Kelly learning about Davis.
We get to know one another and we do different things, you know. It hasn't changed my views about the Klan, you know, because my views on the Klan's been pretty much cemented in my mind for years.
Kelly and his Klan friends go to hear Davis and his band. And Davis goes to their rallies.
I sat on the front row and listened to each Klansman speak. Some things I agreed with, other things I did not agree with.
Davis thinks that his presence promotes badly needed understanding.
Hate stems, I believe, from fear of the unknown. And I think this is all across the board, regardless of whether it's a Klansman or anything else.
But he has no illusions about the Klan. If he did, his friend would be quick to disabuse them.
And I believe in separation of the races. I believe that's in the best interest of all races.
Does he really? Or has friendship transcended the color barrier? Listen to Kelly at a Klan rally.
I will follow that man to hell and back, because I believe in what he stands for and he believes in what I stand for. A lot of times we don't agree with everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me. And I'll respect him to sit down and listen to him.
The strange relationship of a KKK wizard and his black buddy. In Washington, I'm Carl Rochelle, CNN Sunday Morning.
Strange. Good adjective, strange.
Certainly that.
Okay, so, you know, I'm a firm believer that a missed opportunity for dialogue is a missed opportunity for conflict resolution. And you heard the Klan leader there say that even though he and I would do different things together, it did not change his views on the Klan. because his views on the Klan had been cemented in his mind for years. And he went on to say how he believes in separation of the races because he finds that to be in the best interest of all races. But did you hear what he said towards the end about respect? What he said was, we may not agree on everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me, and I respect him to sit down and listen to him. Those were his words. If you don't take anything else home from my portion of this conference today, please take those words home and apply them. Within that one sentence, he named 3 of those principles I gave you at the beginning of my talk here. People all over, they want to be loved, they want to be respected, they want to be heard, they want to be treated fairly, and they want the same thing for their family as we would want for our family. He said, I respected him. Now understand something, I'm not a racist, I'm not a supremacist or separatist or nationalist or any of those things. I did not respect what he had to say. I simply respected his right to say it. All right, so he named respect. He said, I listened to him. People want to be heard. He said, I listened to him, so he listened to me. That's treating each other fairly. There are 3 of those principles right there. And he and I would continue these conversations long after I finished interviewing him. We'd get together and go and have dinner and talk about the Klan or talk about the latest James Bond movie and just things in general. And over time, that cement that he talked about that held his ideas together began to get cracks in it. He began thinking about the things I was telling him. And then it crumbled and fell apart. And today, Roger Kelly no longer believes in what he said in that video clip. He gave up the Ku Klux Klan, quit and renounced it. And in doing so, he gave me his robe and his hood. This is the same robe that you saw him wearing in the video clip. And here is what they call the hood. This is the hood. This is the mask. Members who want anonymity, they wear this mask and they look at you, you don't see them. If they don't care that their identity is revealed, the mask is attached with 3 snaps or Velcro, just detach the mask and the face is exposed under the hood. This cannot and never could have been accomplished without dialogue. And in my 37 years, I have led just over 200 people to give up that ideology. Some of them even come out with me on lectures and renounce that ideology from the stage with me. So remember, a missed opportunity for dialogue is a missed opportunity for conflict resolution. And if you employ those basic 5 principles, it doesn't have to be about race. It could be about anything. Take another hot topic: abortion, global warming, the war in the Middle East, the presidential election, whatever. Those are all hot topics. You're on one side, somebody's on the other. Listen to your adversary. Employ those 5 principles, and I guarantee your navigation would be a lot more positive and a lot more smooth. Thank you all very much.
All right. I again, it's always such a pleasure. You're in the DNA of our museum, I have to say, Daryl Davis, and thank you for what you've done. Please, if you can, take time to watch with your family the movie or read Daryl's book, Clandestine, spelled with a K. Just remarkable to have more than 200 individuals who had such an identity of such anger and belittling of another group of people based on their religion or their skin color, to have them admit that that is not what they want to be part of ever again, and to gift to you their robes and their Klan cards. That's such an incredible contribution. I don't know anyone else like you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca.
I also, Valerie, there's Hazel giving you a big hand. I wanted to say there's something very similar in your story. As a young boy, the father of a military chaplain, our next speaker, Dr. Wayne Jonas, was also a little kid in Vietnam and playing with, kids not like himself. The great Kareem Jabbar said, make a friend who doesn't look like you. And you were blessed to just be children and have that be such a natural experience that helped really, I think, shape the rest of your life and who you became. That's very evident if you read this fantastic book by Wayne Jonas, How Healing Works. So I have to thank again, in this instance, Gloria Logan, who is a friend, a dear friend of Dr. Wayne Jonas. And when she heard that our next exhibition was going to be Healing and the Art of Compassion, she said, oh my gosh, you have to meet and learn from Dr. Wayne Jonas. So thank you, Gloria and Dan, on yet another score. So I would like to introduce to you Wayne, who was the director at NIH of alternative medicine, of integrative medicine. And I think it became, as a little kid, to have that marvelous, bigger experience of what life on this small blue planet is about. And let's listen to him today, who remains such a force in this field, and to understand the role of the mind, the role of self-love, and compassion, as well as how that applies to our aid to have other people who are suffering be ameliorated by our own thoughts and action.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you to the Logans, and thank you to you, Rebecca, for inviting me. It is an incredible honor to be with the other presenters here. I mean, I don't know how you follow what was just done in those areas, but I'll do my best. You asked me, Rebecca, to talk about the science of love and healing and bring that to light as you open up this incredible exhibition. And for those of you who have not been to the museum, I'm so happy to hear that it's open. And I'll be there as soon as I can. I've been vaccinated, so we'll try to get there as soon as I can. Let me talk a little bit about love and healing. And first, let me just make sure you can see these slides and that you can hear me. Are those okay? All right, they should be showing a little bigger now. What I'd like to do is just give you a rundown of the why and the how that we need to look at healing with love. And then point out what the pandemic has shown us about and emphasized that. The bottom line is that there are things that matter to people, and most of them orient around love. Love of family, love of friends, love of country, and that has a huge impact on their health. That is, what's the matter with them if they become a patient or need healing. And so these are inextricably linked. And I'll show you why. Let me start before the pandemic. The why was already there. First of all, our healthcare system is not producing health. In the United States, we are by far first in spending, and we are 37th in the world through almost any metric that you look at in terms of actual health. The GNP, the money part that Hazel talked about, is going up, and we'll be spending close to 20% by 2025, which is not very long. And because of these increasing costs, health disparities, the differences between the haves and the have-nots in healthcare is increasing, getting worse. The gap is getting worse in these areas. Here's a report from the National Academy of Medicine pre-COVID that showed in the US over 30 years, we were declining in these kinds of health outcomes compared to other countries that had wealth like ours in these areas. Probably the best statistic at that time showed that the US was spending over double per capita on healthcare expenditures, and yet when you map that against life expectancy, we were way below most of the other countries. In fact, countries that did not have nearly the wealth and spent much less in those areas. Along comes COVID, a little thing that has changed everything. And it has thrown gasoline on these problems that I've just shown. Primary care physicians during COVID have now 25% have permanently lost practice members, and 41% have had to put staff on leave or unfilled roles. 48% report mental exhaustion and a marked decline in happiness. Family decision makers, mostly women between 30 and 50 or 60, have been under stress and strain with more mental health problems, increased obesity, addiction, and community violence, and increased racial disparities. Healthcare executives, those who manage the healthcare delivery, have had overwhelmed ICUs, declining revenues. Rural systems have especially suffered and are closing, and most of them have put improvement processes, quality improvement processes, on hold. They've stopped those areas. When you look at who dies from COVID, well, it's the same people that were dying of COVID before that, but now at an accelerated rate. The elderly, those with chronic disease, especially cardiovascular disease, hypertension, and obesity, a growing epidemic, and chronic disease. Individuals, people of color, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans have died at a much higher rate. Those with low income, those with poor health care, and those that have not been able to work remotely in service jobs where they've had to go in. The impact on the already dismal figures for life expectancy have accelerated at an unbelievable pace. Within 1 year, the United States has lost an entire year in life expectancy expectation. And that is 3 to 4 times for people in color. So that figure I showed you before has gotten rapidly worse. When it's over, it's not over. I know we're all hoping that this will soon be over, but even it is not over for a third to half of people that have actually had COVID, because there's a persistence of symptoms that seems to go on and on and on over sometimes up to 6 months or longer. And this is called long COVID. And what kind of symptoms? It is affecting every part of a human being, from the physical aspect of their body with organ damage, headache, breathlessness, to behavioral and lifestyle interference, to social and emotional issues, including isolation that I'll show you more in a minute, and to the spiritual and mental component in terms of loss of purpose and apathy. Thus, long COVID is a whole person problem that needs to be addressed as a whole person. Loneliness, which was epidemic prior to COVID, has also gone through the roof, and the science says that this is going to and is bad for our health. Social distancing has resulted in social isolation, and social isolation has hurt us physically and mentally. In a poll that we did with that we commissioned through the Harris poll about Americans who are struggling to care for self, shown the vast majority of them, 80 to 83%, say they're trying to improve their self-care, their behavior in those areas, but nearly 50% are struggling with it. They're actually not doing very well, and they need help in these areas. Both before and after COVID, all of this has pointed to the fact that we need to change our mindset. We need to change our thinking from a simply a cure-based model, a mechanical type of way of looking at parts of people, to a whole person ecological mindset that enhances healing in at least 4 areas: the body, behavior, social and emotional, and the mental and the spiritual areas. So where does love come into this process? Well, love is a key mechanism and effector of this change in mindset and change in healing. Here's a book that came out last year by 2 physicians who did a summary of the data of compassion, what I call a little love. on healing. And the science is very, very clear. It improves health. It improves the experience of our care. It reduces burnout, and it reduces costs. As they say in their caption of their book, it is the wonder drug for the 21st century. And this is just a little love. Here's an example of someone who is applying this whole person integrative type of care to the underserved populations that got hit with COVID. This is Dr. Alan Roth at the Department of Family Medicine at Jamaica Hospital in Queens, which is the most diverse area in the world. 135 languages, cares for over 1 million people, the vast majority of which are on Medicare or have no insurance. It's a safety net hospital. He started integrating healthcare, whole person integrative healthcare practices before COVID through compassion lens. And then they were at the center of the first storm in COVID in Queens. Having to take, for example, an entire children's hospital and convert it to an intensive care unit. And they now have launched several long COVID clinics to try to deal with the persistent symptoms through a whole person lens. We've been working closely with Alan Roth to create resources for him to deliver this across his entire system, and we've made them available to everyone. They've focused on avoiding burnout, enhancing the immune system, and building resilience. Alan and others are applying these tools to providers, to patients, and to the community to deal with and build resilience and address issues of loneliness and trauma. These resources are available to my website and are free of charge to anybody in those areas. Let me just show you two that you can utilize right now to cultivate the little love I'm talking about in yourself. One is to do a compassionate practice. This is a simple 15-minute mind-body practice that cultivates your experience of compassion in your own life for yourself, for the world, and for others. You can find the link here on this website. We'll make all of this available to you after the meeting. This, in fact, improves your ability to see others and yourself with compassion. The second one is a gratitude journal, and this has been very well tested, and it is so simple. It simply means you write down 5 things that you're grateful for every evening before you go to bed. Just write them out. And doing that once a day over a period of weeks actually reduces burnout and enhances joy and healing. But as COVID has shown, and as I hope I've illustrated to you here, a little love is not enough. We need something that Daryl just illustrated for us. We need a big love. And the exhibition on bigger love is illustrating that. Here's a book that just came out a few months ago by Heather McGee, in which she's collected incredible data showing that racism hurts all of us, not just certain parts of the population. And that the flip side of that, caring for all of us, actually helps all of us. Integration, as Daryl is just showing he's doing in some of the most difficult settings, helps all of us in all areas: shelter, security, education, and health. We thrive in diverse cultures and should seek them out. We need a bigger love. About 3 decades ago, we gathered healers from around the world and scientists, and you can see the list of groups that we pulled from, and we had a whole series of meetings, yes, face-to-face meetings, to look at what were the components and what were the common factors across all healing components around the world. And this group came up with 2 key findings. Number 1 is that we are made up of more than just our body, that everyone is made up of the body, the mind, and the spirit. And if we only look at the body, then person 1 and person 2 in this graph will seem like they're far away from person 3 and will form their little group. But in fact, on the mental and the spiritual level, they are connected, that they're not separate, that they are one. And so to pay attention to the whole person means to pay attention to how they are influencing and being influenced by everyone anywhere. The second thing that they came up when we asked them through a series of Delphi approaches as to what are these core components of healing, and what emerged very clearly were two. Love and positive intention were core aspects of those areas. Love provided the power for healing. It was considered the only one that was necessary, though not sufficient. And it was defined as more than just the little love, the love between people. It was somehow divine in origin. It was the bigger love, connecting to not only others, but the other. Intention allowed the direction of this to do what you needed it to do. The benevolent intention resulted in healing, but you could, of course, use intention for evil if you wished, and this would not result in healing. And it was cultivated to through these kinds of mind-body practices that I've just illustrated. After this, we set off on a 2.5-decade journey to begin to study the impact of healing and love through a scientific lens. Could you actually understand love by measuring different types of interactions between persons? And here's some examples of the ways we measure them, and I'll highlight just two. In the cell studies, which are published, of looking at love effect in the laboratory, very clearly showed that it improved energy and altered calcium and immune flux in the laboratory. We also saw in clinical studies in the community using EEG measures, that's the brainwave measures, that love occurred at a distance between separated people, that they were indeed connected, and that connection was independent of them being in the same room. Resonant EEGs from positive healing intention occurred across thousands of miles. This research has been summarized through a number of publications, and I've illustrated just a few here over the decades, but it was the bottom line is it very clearly showed that love has an impact on healthcare gaps in healing, that it has an impact on our science and knowledge, and that it has an impact on our mindset and what we see as reality. So we need to go beyond mindset. We need to go to changing what we see. And this is where the visionary arts actually are powerful. And the new exhibition on bigger love, I think, is going to have its greatest impact. It will help us see that we are whole people and what is a whole person. It'll help us see what matters to everyone. It'll help us see that we are all connected all of the time, and that this connection through love is central to healing. Again, I want to thank you all for inviting me. Thank you, Rebecca and Gloria and Dan and the other panel members I was able to share the stage with. Thank you.
Well, I can't wait to work with you more deeply. I thank you for making that incredible connection between gratitude and love as well, because I believe gratitude and that journaling that you were recommending for all of us to do begins that process of acknowledgement of what we're grateful for, opens the door to love. And we've been fortunate when we honored Louis Schwartzberg at the last Logan Visionary Conference. He has made these small films called Gratitude. I don't know if you've seen that series, but it's so kindred to your way of thinking. Didn't you also, in this book, I don't know if it's stood up since COVID, but didn't you also bring up the fact that even pre-COVID, that the third leading cause of death in America is medical error?
Yes, it is. In fact, we throw some very risky things at people after they get sick, right? And some of them are pretty challenging to deliver. And human error comes into to play when that happens. And it produces mistakes, and it produces side effects, and it produces death. And that's also a National Academy of Medicine study that came out a number of years ago, that we need to go further upstream to prevent that. We need to come up with less toxic approaches, and we need to embed things that will help take care of normal human error that occurs more efficiently and more effectively.
I think that there's great correlation between what Hazel was bringing up. I know many of us saw the stock market go higher, 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 and it may on paper look good for our IRAs, etc. But I think we were so aware, how can this be that we're told we're having a thriving economy when so many businesses are shuttered? The lines for food are being populated by people who never were food insecure. You know, something, the reality isn't matching up. And you're saying we spend more than anyone else on medicine to be not nearly as healthy as our peers who have a standard of abundance, even far less than what we do. So these are important questions to keep before the public. And with great love, we thank everyone today, our staff and the many volunteers to our museum, our docents, for all listening to everything you said. And thank you so, so much again to the Revada Foundation and to all of you who joined today, took your Sunday time to be with us today. Thank you to all our speakers and Dr.
Thank you.
Wow. You're my doc. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was an honor to be here with everybody.
Oh, yeah. Hazel, Daryl, and to our ambassador who will see this, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Rebecca, and all.
I tell you, our staff, you know, how blessed we are that we have a museum that is physically so beautiful, to be enticing, that people come in and love it, right? There's so much visual beauty, a feast to be had, but always there are the right questions that are posed. It's not preachy. It just gives you a menu of thoughts that we as a human family need to contemplate together to emerge to be a better people. So thank you for accomplishing that, each one of you in your own way today.